Jesus is the answer for the world today. Above him there's no other, 'cause Jesus is the way.
Today we're going to be talking about the subject of questioning and clarifying. The overall topic is called an open invitation to talk. Why? Because if you can't get the people to talk, how much are you going to learn? I've actually had some clients, and usually due to some particular problem and so on, that aren't going to tell you anything that you don't drag out of them in some fashion to be able to understand what is going on. I've had some clients, I may get 3 or 4 sentences besides yes and no's out of them, and it's a little bit hard to do counseling in that kind of an environment. So the skills we're talking about here is how are we going to draw people out, how are we going to add to our attending skills, and then what kind of questions are we going to actually use, and then how are we going to clarify what they're saying. That's our topic for today. Questions help the interviewing along. They open areas of discussion, assist in pinpointing issues, and they can be used to facilitate the healthy self-exploration. Questions indicate that a person is interested in you and what you have to say. Good questions help people explore themselves and their feelings more deeply. Powerful questioning is an essential part of coaching, and we'll talk about that later. However, questions can make a person feel interrogated. Questions too early can interfere with the development of rapport, or can make people put up defenses rather than open up. So this isn't something where you just, a lot of questions. There's a way of doing this right, and there's a way of doing this wrong. Just like there was a way of attending right and a way of attending wrong. And our goals today are going to be develop an awareness of the strengths and weaknesses of questioning, understand the difference between open and closed questions, identify how questions stem from could, what, would, why, lead to various types of client talk, learn the skills of questioning in the interview of different types of people, and learn how to apply them in our daily life. Now there's really a controversy when you talk about the different types of counseling. The types of counseling we use here mostly, let's call it insight counseling. How much do you think we use questioning? A lot. But then you compare it to Carl Rogers' type of counseling. How much questioning does he do? None. All he does is listens. And so there's a whole spectrum here of what people say. Later on, we're going to talk about some people don't like certain kinds of questions. One of the type of questions they don't like, I love. So they're going to have your own style, and this is going to be different. But there's a lot to learn here about the questioning that we're talking about. But how about the Bible? Remember, we're just not doing a secular class here in counseling and coaching skills. We want to always bring the Bible in and see what the Bible says about it. What's the Bible's attitude about questioning? Let's look at some verses. Luke 2:46 says, after 3 days they found him in the temple, that's Jesus, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. So if Jesus did it, do you think it might be okay for us? Proverbs 20, verse 5. The purpose in a man's mind is like deep waters, but a man of understanding can draw them out. Timothy 2:23. But foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strifes. So there are some type of questions we're not supposed to do according to the Bible. Titus 3:9. But avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions and strivings about the law, for they are unprofitable and vain. So what's it saying? Don't use questions to stir up problems. Use questions to resolve problems. So what are some of the critical skills. The first, what they call, is open invitation to talk. Stay out of the way. See, is this about me, or is this about the other person? Open questions encourage talking and exploration. Now, what is an open question like? One that doesn't ask yes or no. An open question might be, how are you guys doing in the class today? Because you can answer that a lot of different ways, can't you? When are open questions used? To begin the interview. The way I usually start my counseling is I'll say something like this: what can I do to help you? Is that fairly open? They can answer about anything, can't they? Helping the interview person that you're interviewing to elaborate on a point. Could you tell me more about that? Elicit examples of specific behavior. Tell me what that looked like when you did it. Or could you give me a specific example of that problem? Focus the client's attention on feelings. Okay, I understand what happened. Now, how did you feel about that? Helping you find client thinking patterns that are not obvious. Why would a person do something like that? Could questions pass control to the client? Could you help me understand that? See, sometimes you can tell a question by what the first word is, right? That's called a could question. A what question helps the client talk about the facts and the specifics about a situation or event and explain what happened. When you hit the policeman, what did he do? How questions. They lead to talk about the process. How was it that you beat up the policeman? Did you use a bat? And why questions. Now, there are a lot of people that don't like why questions. I happen to love them. Because why questions search for reasons and understanding the behavior, thoughts, and emotions, and are used for analysis. So if you're pretty much an insight therapist like I am, wanting to understand everything, then you end up using quite a few why questions. Now, what's deeper than that? Let's peel the onion another layer. Okay, now that's why you said that. Now that's what you believe. Now why do you believe that? And so on. Just a comment, why questions are not usually appropriate for people under age 14. They don't have formal thinking yet. And what kind of an answer are you going to get? I don't know. Because they don't know. Because they just react. They don't have the ability to stand outside of themselves and look at themselves yet to really understand what is going on. There are some exceptions. Some people can get that as early as like 11 to 12 or something like that. But generally, why questions don't work good with kids that don't have formal thinking. Closed questions. Ask for data and yes or no answers and ignore feelings. So do you ever use a closed question? Yes. There are a lot of different reasons for using closed questions. They're very useful at filling in details. They structure the interview. They're usually are and do questions. Like, do you like cake? They're used for less verbal clients. If you use a general overall question, an open question, and the person isn't very verbal, what are you going to get many times? Silence. So then what do you have to do? Sometimes on closed questions, I'll even do this, especially when we're doing what we call layer cake, and it will be teaching you later. Say, now, what did that mean to you? And they'll be, I don't know. Okay, did it mean A, B, C, D, or E? I'll guess. what I think the answer is, and then they might say, oh yeah, it's this. So closed questions are sometimes very useful. To collect data for charting or problem solving. Charting is your documentation. We'll be talking about that in this class also. And basically, you have a little checklist, and you go down the checklist. Say, are you suicidal? Are you homicidal? Do you have a plan? And so on. Those would all be closed questions. Used to clarify later in the interview. Was you've listened to all this stuff, you put it together, and you do, now I missed it. You know, what was that you said about that? To collect specific facts to clarify abstractions. You have a general idea, does this really apply? One thing I'll do many times at the end, you're going to say, am I reading you right? Is that how you really feel? When you feel the client feels threatened, in other words, they're putting up walls and defenses, then you can give them real easy things, yes or no questions. Use when you have a limited amount of time. You've got so much, you got to get this document done, so you might not realize it in drug alcohol. It takes like an hour and a half to do the initial assessment. And it's a lot of these questions about all the kinds of things. Have you used marijuana? Have you used this? Have you used that? And how much have you used? Leading closed questions like lawyers used are dangerous and may mislead you in what your client is really expressing. You are not a lawyer. You're not trying to put them in a box, okay? You're trying to learn. Because if you do that, what kind of a response are you going to get? They're going to clam up. And you are going to be leading them in a certain direction. And notice how lawyers can make people say stuff they don't mean? Well, is that what you really want? Are you trying like a square peg in a round hole? What are you trying to do? We're trying to really, remember last time, attending, understand, have empathy, feel the way they feel, real communication, that we get where they're really at. We're not trying to make them into something or make them admit something. We want the truth. We want real data. So you have to watch in your questioning that you don't go on these extremes and sort of mess things up. Here are some warning signs that you're using closed questions incorrectly. Talking more than the client. Questions are longer than the answers. Conversation is strained due to few answers. Answering yes and no would make them look bad. The conversation seems to shut down. Remember, what are we using questions for? To open up the conversation. So if you're shutting down the conversation, big red flag. You better do something different. You can convert closed questions to open ones by adding how, which, or what. See, if instead of saying, did you hit the policeman? I can say, how did you hit the policeman? Change from a yes, no to more descriptive. So I can always change closed questions into open questions by adding the how, which, or what. Next are reflective questions. They help the client get in touch with what they're feeling. In back of everything a person says, there are feelings, right? What are feelings? They're like a thermometer. Based on how you see life, based on what you experience, your thermometer, your feelings go up or they go down based on your perceptions. Reflective questions feed back to the client what you feel they are feeling. Is it possible that you're really angry and not telling me that? I'm asking them to look at themselves now and say how they're really feeling. Maybe I didn't get that. It's like a paraphrase, adding what you think the client is thinking or feeling. So I'm trying to draw out the feelings. If they express the feelings, no problem. Am I picking up right that you're really anxious? See the way I do that? Looking for distortions in the thinking pattern. Is this an echo from the past? Do they actually have evidence to these feelings? Are they looking at all the possibilities? Are they minimizing or exaggerating? All of these things sort of give you warnings. There's feelings back here we better get a hold of. Black and white thinking. Are they generalizing from a single incident? Those are all reasons that the feelings and what's actually going on might not work together. Then we have powerful questions. Now, powerful question is a term that's used in life coaching. And what it really means is your questions go a whole lot deeper to bring out the deep feelings or where the person is coming from. Where are you going to use those for? If you're trying to find out what they believe God has called them to do, you're trying to find out their call in their life as a coach, or come up with the ideas of what they would really like to do in life, or draw them out and go deeper into where they really are and learn more about them. The suggestion is it's the bread and butter of coaching. Really good coaches are very good at drawing people out and really getting deep in what they really want and what's really going on. It's used to focus the conversation, foster exploration, push the client to dig deeper, and reach higher, and ensure commitment. You might also think of these as asking bigger questions, ones that have more options rather than giving advice. Again, in all counseling and all coaching, do we want to be giving a lot of advice? No. We want them to get the idea. Why? Because if they get the idea, they might actually do it. If you just suggest stuff, how much do you think your client is really going to do? And they're probably going to get defensive. So like your mom and dad or something, trying to tell them what to do. See, we'll say over and over again, I'm not telling you what to do. Sometimes you have to go exactly the opposite. I had this one client, that's what I would do at the session. I'd figure out probably what he needed to do, and I'd say, in fact, I suggest you probably don't. Because that would set him free to the possibility he might actually do it. Because he had such a problem with authority figures, if you told him to do anything, there was no chance it was going to happen. Sometimes you have to sort of think backward, figure out these things. See, what is the big question you're trying to solve? What are some more options? Now here's an interesting thing. Let's look at Jesus again and bring Jesus in here. And I want you to listen. These all come from the leadership coaching book by Tony Stolfus. But here are some of the different ones. These are directly from Jesus. And you'll see how Jesus used powerful questions. Who do you say that I am? That's Luke 9:20. What do you seek? John 1:38. What do you want me to do? Luke 18:41. Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? John 8:10. What is this you're discussing so intently as you walk alone? Mark 24:17, the Message Bible. What is written in the law? How do you read it? Do you see how these are so open? They draw so much out. That the way Jesus would talk to people and find out where they were really coming from just by his questions. Show me a coin. Whose likeness and inscription has it? Lots of times when they tried to trap him by these powerful questions, he just turned the whole thing around, didn't he? Luke 20:24. Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven you, or to say, rise up and walk? That's Luke 5:23. Which of these three do you think proved neighbor to the man? I ask you, is it lawful on the Sabbath day to do good or to do harm? To save life or to destroy it? That's Luke 6:9. So you see how much Jesus used questions to draw people out and really get to the root of the problem? Avoid solution-oriented questions. Those are signs that you're pushing too hard. Well, now what are you really going to do? Now that's up to them what they're really going to do. Who's going to get their consequences? Hopefully them. Crafting great probing questions like Jesus do. What do you use? Use the client's words. Be succinct. In other words, get very narrow in what you're saying there. Be neutral. See, he didn't, in any of those questions, aim them one direction or another. He just asked them. And you must withhold judgment, because as soon as you start judging, what are they going to do? Put up defenses, right? How about less verbal clients? How do you handle them? Because you're going to get some of them. See, Frank, like what you were trying to deal with last time, right? Build trust at the client's pace. Expect some randomness. Balance open and closed questions, and if necessary, use multiple choice, like I described to you earlier. With children, if you're questioning, be warm and talkative. Use play therapy to help them open up, like puppets. Be surprised how it changes when you're trying to get a kid to talk if you have a puppet and they're talking to the puppet instead. Have them do things while they're talking. Things I do with younger kids is I'll play checkers with them, because the checkers will get them distracted. I also can manipulate the checker game to find out issues about how they feel about winning and losing and all these other kind of things. And they'll talk to me a whole lot more. And of course, if you have to, bribe them. Have some candy. Overall goals. We're looking for a general picture of what happened. Those are could. Okay? Key facts about the situation. That's what. Emotions are how. Draw out the reasons. That's the why. And remember to blend with your attending skills. And finally, in families and groups, what do? You got to focus on the whole group. Don't just get focused on one person. Remember we said last time, trying to divide your attending between each person in the group. And you would observe and challenge the entire family's style, rules, or norms, rather than one person all the time. There's our picture of questioning. Now we're going to have one other topic we're going to look at today, and that's called clarifying, and what they call it is the minimal encourage or paraphrase. When Carl Rogers developed his method of counseling, he was basically saying all you do is listen, and if you let them talk long enough, they'll figure out their own answers. But when they started watching him on videotape, they were noticing that he was sending messages. And those messages are this, what we call about here, the minimal encourage. There are sort of things you do automatically to encourage people to talk besides ask questions. It helps them explore issues more in depth. They're indicators to the client that you're with them, and they encourage the client to keep talking. You can use words, but generally, as said, it is just a paraphrase type of thing. To give you an idea, some minimal encourages. Oh, so? Then? See, it can just be one word that way, which just gives them a little push to continue talking of what they're doing. And? Or you can repeat back a word that they just said. You hit them. You see, that's why it's called a minimal encourage. You're doing very little, but you're not asking questions. And of course, that's sort of the key when you're in this situation where you don't feel that you're doing all the questions and this is becoming an interrogation, is using these minimal encourages to just keep the thing going by doing those kind of things. Tell me more. Repeating one or two words, or repeating their words. Silence can even be used. If they're talking, you see, and they're struggling maybe emotionally, and you just sit there. Was it Job's friends that sat without saying a word for a week? We don't recommend that long. Make sure you are comfortable with whatever you're doing. And these things sort of are automatic. Repeat words resulting in the client elaborating. It's used more by experienced counselors. And then paraphrase. And paraphrase is where you just sort of say back to them. It's sort of a standard counselor thing. I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times. What I think I heard you say was that you really hate your mom and you're about ready to kill her. You're putting it together. You're putting the different things together, and you're trying to make sure that they're saying what you're getting. Do you see how it's part of the communication thing that's going on here? Paraphrase focuses on what has been said and a longer time frame used to let the client know that you have heard the helper clearly and to let them know that they have been heard. It's sort of like a computer line check. You know, in a computer, it sends the data across, and the data comes back, and they compare it to see if they got the data across to the other computer, that kind of thing. It also can be sort of a checkout question. Am I hearing you correctly? They can even just be, okay. Again, we're going to let them sort of continue. Notice it's not an interpretation where you add or share your explanation. We'll be talking about that later. This is just sort of paraphrasing back. And later on, we're going to teach you a whole method called the speaker-listener technique that uses paraphrases. It's a method of eliminating all communication errors. But that's going to be in a different session. Using clarifying skills with groups or families. Again, use open-ended questions, encourage to bring out less verbal members, focus on helping statements for the entire family or the group. And of course, what we're going to be doing today now is we want to integrate your attending, your questioning, your encourages, and your paraphrases all into one particular lesson where we're actually going to do that, and we're going to demonstrate some of those again and see what they look like. And remember, your assignment is ours after this class to go home, find some good guinea pigs like your people in your family, and practice these different things without even telling me you are. In other words, to just try some of these encourages, some of these questions, and just see how it works, and also see what you're already doing. If you already know do this and it works wonderfully for you, fine, but you might notice that you're doing certain things in the way you're relating that aren't real good, and we want to improve that and make that better. So now let's go ahead and do a demonstration. What can I do to help you?
I think I've been feeling a little bit stressed and overwhelmed lately with my schedule, and I don't know how to thin it out, balance my life with some things.
Okay.
I'm going to school, I'm working, going to these classes, and I'm at church, and it's causing a lot of stress for us and our marriage and our family. I just don't know how to deal with it all.
But that's a lot to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's very stressful.
How are you feeling?
I'm pretty tired and pretty stressed out. There's not a day that I just don't have anything. I'm just a little bit overwhelmed.
I'm hearing you overwhelmed.
So I don't know where to go from here. I don't know how to figure it out because I need the Wichita State classes for the secular degree. I need these classes for the counseling degree, which is what I really feel being called to do, but I need to work to support my family, and of course I don't want to give up church. That's the one good thing that I do, that I like doing perfectly.
I'm hearing you so much on your plate that you don't know what to do with it or how you could actually make it okay.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how to balance it all and still be able to do everything I need to do and be there, you know, as a 7-month-old. And I'm feeling a little bit guilty for not being there.
What are you doing now?
My job?
Now, what are you doing now to balance this? What are you already doing?
I just, any little bit of time I have, I try to spend with her, I try to do what I need to do, but a lot of times we have Isaiah doing homework in the car on the way up to school because we didn't have time on it the night before because I was in class till 7 or 8. And here in Wichita, the drive to Wellington every day doesn't help. So I'm just trying to.
So I'm hearing you're doubling up though, because that'd be one of the first things I'd recommend is that you're doubling up on your time. Can you use all the time Wellington back and forth and somehow maybe have somebody else drive and you can be doing your homework, take your laptop along?
I thought about that. I just need to get it where I'm in the habit of doing that because we leave so early in the morning. We leave between 5:30 and 6. Usually I'm kind of tired and not want to do a whole lot of stuff in the morning on the way up there because we don't get to bed till late the night before. And like on Wednesdays when Patterson has PLC, we have to be there at 7. So we have to leave even earlier. And Tuesday nights, nights I have class till 11, pretty much by the time we get home. So it's just trying to find time to do things. Like right now I have a test I have to do, and lesson plans to write, and trying to find the time to do it. So.
I'm hearing you're feeling unorganized.
Yeah. I desperately need some, I don't know, some balance and organization to figure out when to fit in everything.
So maybe you have your own answer.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah. So, and I don't know. It's just, I guess I need to figure out what to do in what bits of time so that it flows smoother. Because right now it just feels like chaos.
How about your priorities? Which of these, you got all this stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
See, one thing I learned in life is you'll never get it all done. Because even if you did, you'd add more things on to get it done. At least I would.
I guess my first priority would be God and my church, quickly followed by this whole counseling with WSU and here, because that's what I feel like God really called me to do. And then probably the family and everything. But the problem is the family sometimes gets pushed aside because everything else has to come first. And it's really hard because I feel guilty because that's where my heart is really, is to be with my kids. And it's just, I've been home with them for the last 3 or 4 years and it's like a shock. It's only, to not see Gabrielle until 7 or 8 o'clock at night and then get up, take her back at 6 in the morning. And she's sleeping usually at that time. So.
And I'm sorry hearing sort of a conflict in your priorities that you're telling me that your classes need to be your second priority, but I think maybe you're telling me from the guilt that your kids need to be your first or second priority.
Yeah, probably. It's just hard because when you want to do something and you feel called to do something so much that it's hard to balance that with this other thing that's important to you too.
I understand.
So just, I guess, in conflict of which is more important at this moment. So.
Yeah, one method that seems to work is that if you just prioritize whatever it is and take the first thing off your stack and do that, and the next thing, 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 and then reprioritize. It might be an idea for you.
Okay. Problem is I tend to add things to my list. I have a really hard time saying no. Like, our pastor asked Patterson and I to do this box thing for Christmas because we had just done the school supplies drive and we both feel like we want to do it. We both feel like God called us to do it, but we're just like, how are we going to do that on top of everything else? And it's a really hard thing to say no to something we feel like we should and want to do, but we just honestly don't feel like we have the time to do. If that makes sense.
I'm hearing maybe you have a hard time saying no.
Yeah. Yeah. A really hard time saying
And
no.
maybe that's the core of the problem?
Yeah, probably.
So what can you say no to? Maybe some things you need to go and evaluate and go through and determine what are the things I can say no, what can I get off my plate, and what can I put in my plate later.
Okay. Well, how do you say no to things you really want to do and you feel like you should do, but you just don't have the time to do it that way?
You say, oh.
But what if you want to do it?
That's the problem, because we can't do everything, can we?
No.
And we all have a choice. We can feel overwhelmed, or we can take things off our plate, organize them better, prioritize them better. But generally, we're not super woman, super mom, super counselor, and be able to do everything. And sometimes we have to, in my opinion, accept our limitations.
So it's probably say no to the pastor about the box
You
thing.
may have to, and I'm sure he'll accept it if you say it and say, I'm just very sorry, I'd love to do it. I really want to do it, but right now I've got all these things going and I really can't see what I can cut back on. You please try and find somebody else. Been very good talking to you.
Yeah.
Be feeling guilt, so the questions you asked really brought out more deeper levels of where she was coming from.
And what questions that I use the most of?
What? Kind of a lot of what questions.
Not what questions, okay?
Encourage you.
Would I use more open or more closed questions?
More open.
What was our percentage of open to closed?
I don't got any clue.
90 to 10 or something. I only use a few closed questions.
I got two.
Yeah,
Okay?
okay.
Okay.
I also paraphrased a lot.
Okay, you saw a lot of paraphrases in there that just sort of came natural to clarify.
But I do think your closed questions did redirect. I
Yeah.
mean, and I could be wrong, but that was pretty much how you would have done it, right? I mean, that's pretty much what you would have done in counseling, right?
Mhm. That's what I was trying to give you an example of basically how a counseling session might go, and you could pick all those pieces up. Later on, we'll have a class we're talking more about just integration, that kind of thing.
And there's other, is there, or any aspects to, or we just talking about how you did right now?
We're just,
Okay.
we're talking, okay, first let's get what comments you have on this particular thing, or what are things you say. How about those minimal encourages?
That's right.
What kind of minimal encourages did I use?
Suggested options.
And you notice at the beginning, she's a very good client. You notice at the beginning, with just a few minimal encourages, she
Yeah.
just kept talking and talking. I didn't have to ask a lot of questions to really get her to open up and to come out.
And used I'm hearing a lot, and that got her talking a lot too.
I think you didn't jump like I would to the solution. You know, I probably would be probably trying to get the solution right away without more of the data.
And of course, the idea is we want the data, but also we want her to come up with the solution as much as possible. Remember that? And so that's why listening, this is a whole listening, really hearing type of thing. Who did more of the talking, her or me?
Or the, yeah, she,
That's what we want, right? So to see how this goes? This is our second demonstration.
So what can I do for you today?
Well, I'm kind of having a little bit of a problem with this new job that I'm in. A couple months back, got laid off working on aircraft, and I did that for a good many years. And now I'm doing a role that's not so much what I was trained to do in my experience. I used to work electrical systems on aircraft, so there was a certain kind of stigma with all that. But now I'm more of a maintenance man at a place, and I do work on machines and things like that. But I'm kind of having a problem adjusting to that kind of rule, and maybe it's my own pride. With kind of, I feel like it's a step down, and it's something that I'm not sure if I should, keep doing or type things.
So what is the problems that you're having, the adjusting in the role? What are the problems? What would they be?
I would say sometimes I would feel like some things are beneath me at this job, where before I went to school for this other job and was doing this. And what I worry is that I want to be a good employer of this company, but I kind of fear a little bit that if aircraft open back up, I'd probably jump ship. And I'm kind of torn between, you know, if I should stay at this job or not in the future, I guess.
So, if I'm hearing you right, it's a question of, do you feel like you would be betraying them by doing this job and engulfing yourself in that job?
Betraying
the company you're working for now. If you would leave them, if you get really involved and really do a good job, that you're dealing with betrayal toward your other company.
Not so much the other company. I feel I know going to the interview with this other company, it's a smaller company, and the guy really wanted more of a guy that's going to be there. That he was kind of putting trust in me that, you know, I want this job and I'm going to continue through this job. So I feel a bit guilty in the fact that I don't so much like this job as it is now. But it could also be the fact that it's just a new job, and I kind of maybe should give it more time and just see how it goes.
So did you make a commitment to the guy that you're working for now as far as how long you would be there, or impress upon him that you would be there a long time?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of made it sound like, you know, he wants someone for the long haul. And this being the guy that owns the company, he, you know, is direct, you know, it's not so many layers to the top, so he's kind of involved in a lot of the processes. So, and the fact that maybe a friend of mine got me the job that works there. So I'm more kind of worried about him also.
Mm-hmm. You know. What do you think would happen if tomorrow they call, and what do you think would happen if your other company called you back and you just leave? What would be so catastrophic about that, or what would be bad about that?
Well, it would be with my friend. He would maybe lose a little bit of trust with the boss, because my friend is a supervisor.
Okay.
So he'll lose a little bit there. And then even the continued people that would want to hire in after me that had came in the same way I did. And there's a lot of stigma with people in and around this area that, oh, all these other companies don't want to hire aircraft workers because that's the exact reason. So that's kind of what I'm worried about. And I don't want to be another statistic in that process.
That's not a good position to be in.
Yeah.
So what do you think that says about you if you do that?
Yeah, to me, it's a little bit deceptive, because I guess I went in with it, if it was going to be a good job, I will stay there. And I'm not saying it's not a bad, it is a good job. It's just right now, you know, I'm just trying to figure out where I'll fit in with it all. So.
Okay. So you don't really, you're just not comfortable where you're at, is what I'm hearing. You're not comfortable, you're not really comfortable where you're at, but also you're not comfortable at leaving.
Yeah.
If you would get called back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of, yeah, it's kind of a dilemma, you know.
So to lessen, is there anything you can think of that you could do to lessen this feeling of betrayal, or this feeling of not really happy, but I'm almost putting on a facade, if I'm hearing you right? What do you think you could do? What's some things you could implement to help you not feel this way?
Well, probably recently I've been thinking that if I would do things more at this current job that feel needed, you know, like being the new person, you know, I have to learn a lot of different things. So I'm slowly trying to get more involved. And I think if I get more involved and they depend on me more, I'll like it more, because at first I didn't have a lot of things to do, but the more I do and the more I can work, then I may end up liking the job. So maybe I can build on just taking on more and letting them trust me more, and then it'll be an okay job for me, probably.
So if I understand right, it's not as much the job, it's the what if happens of the job.
Yeah, because when I first came into it, they didn't have, it was a maintenance thing, and they had a lot of machines to fix, but sometimes the machines are going. And when you're the new guy, And you know, you're like, okay, what to do? Well, nothing's broken. There's nothing to do. So you know, a little nervous, like, okay, why did they hire me? There's not really a lot to do. So part of that might be just guilt on my own part.
Okay, what's your analysis? How did he do on overall questions, open questions versus closed questions? Anyone?
A lot of what questions, you had a couple of closed questions,
Yeah.
which were appropriate.
How was his ratio of questions? The client talk and how much did the counselor talk? It was good, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was kind of the same with your closed questions too. They led to,
Mhm.
you know, him thinking more, coming up with solutions of his own, options of his own too.
Mhm.
It wasn't just yes or no, it was yes and then added more, so.
Did you notice anything else? Was the client a bit defensive? What did you notice?
He crossed his arms at some
That's right.
point.
He crossed his arms at some point. Those are usually signs to you as a counselor if you pick those up. That's that he's sort of struggling. You know, how deep is this going to go? Where am I going to end up with these questions? How about encourages? And can you see how it went? Now, is there anything, realize we've really advanced here, much more than what we're actually in the book and what we're learning here. Now, what else, where could have you taken that? If that was a counseling session, what was the part that wasn't totally explored? So you pointed out the trappedness and so on, but we didn't explore how to deal with the guilt. And we didn't explore how long. See, maybe there's a time. If he goes for, or does the best job he can for 6 months, then he'll be released from the guilt of leaving because he finally contributed enough to the company. Do you see what I'm saying? Where is that point? Or does he have to stay there? Is he trapped for the rest of his life because he implied he was going to be a long-term employee? Even if he hates the place, is he going to have to stay there for the rest of his life?
That's good.
His loyalty to his friend that got him the job was there.
Yes, and how much is that? See, at what point should he be released? At what point should he be feeling guilty? At what point should he be feeling guilty?
I should have said, what does loyalty mean to you?
Yes, that would be a very good open question.
Yeah,
And where are those lines?
yeah, that's good.
I thought it was very good.
Jesus is the answer for the world today. Above him there's no other, 'cause Jesus is the way. Jesus is the answer for the world today. Above him there's no other.